This is Pam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Agi Keramidas. I want to talk to you about the fact that you're a podcaster. You have your own podcast called the Personal Development Mastery Podcast, and you've written a book. You're a dentist. You're a knowledge broker. You're an author. So, welcome to the Pam Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing today?
I'm really well, thank you. It's such a joy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So, a couple of things we ask any guest before we get to the heart of your story is what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
The podcast, the motivation comes from here, from my heart. So it is very, very easy. It is internal. So I feel like it is the right thing for me. So that gives me the motivation. What was the second question you asked?
Well, like, why do you do what you do? Like,
Because I feel I'm fulfilling my purpose, the reason why I'm living this life. So I think this is a very powerful motivator.
so when did you well, maybe talk about your story. You're a dentist. I don't know. You said you were a dentist. Are you still a dentist?
I practice part time
Part time?
now.
No.
Yes.
Yeah. Because now that your gig has become bigger.
It
Yeah,
certainly
now,
has in terms of the time that I allocate to it. Of course, of course.
so
Uh,
when did you find podcasting? Because I got into it back in 2016. I've been on the air since then. But it's something that's gotten bigger since then.
I discovered it 2 years after you, 2018. That's when I started my first podcast, and my second podcast, the one I run now, the Personal Development Mastery. I started in 2020. So I do have also, now that I think about it, gosh, it's almost 7 years for me that I've started
Wow.
podcasting. So it's incredible. It's how time goes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I started when it was just audio. I was on Spearmint. It was an app called Spearmint. It was just on a phone,
Okay.
and somebody had, I'm a musician. Somebody asked me they wanted to interview me about my music. I didn't even know what a podcast was, and I was like, "What's that?" It's always like a radio interview. So I said,
Mm.
"Okay." So it's a guy named Brock Tunes out of New York. He interviewed me, and then we liked it so much we created a podcast together.
Mm.
Right after that one episode where he interviewed me, we started talking about music for like 6 months, and then he couldn't keep on doing it. And I said, well, why don't I actually keep on doing this and interview emerging and independent artists? And that's how I started. And then it opened up to like anybody who's creative,
Mhm.
anybody like whether you're a businessman, another podcaster, a writer, a film producer, anybody who has a creative bent. I found a way to kind of be very expansive in the way I talk to like a wide range of guests. So I understand people told me, "Oh, you shouldn't do that," but I was like, "Well, it's worked for me." So people have to figure out what their niche is. But you take advice, you here it comes, or you figure out what you can do. But what made you want to be a podcaster?
I will also add to what you were saying that in my mind, I know nowadays it's all about video, and we're now using this wonderful platform to connect on video as well. However, in my mind, podcasting is also much more connected with the radio rather than video.
You
It is hearing and while you're driving, or this kind of in my mind. So when you said like a radio interview, that's exactly how I still see it. Of course, we have to embrace the wave of
video.
how things are, and of course video is now a big part of it. But yeah, for me audio has a very special place in my heart. So I think that's why, to answer your question, I didn't even know about that I wanted to start a podcast before that time. In 2018, it was, I had just gotten into public speaking, so I had gone on stage a few times, and it felt like a very empowering experience and way out of my comfort zone. So the empowerment came after, not not before.
Yeah,
At that time, I heard about podcasting from at an event that I was, and I thought, wow, this is probably the best opportunity for me to combine my new skill of public speaking with the ability to send it to more people and not. So that's how it started. It was mainly a matter of curiosity. But very soon afterwards, I realized that I was very passionate about it. And I do still remember the very first time I recorded one episode, the very first episode. I was buzzing afterwards for 3 hours. I was such, I
Yeah.
was elated. So I thought, wow, okay, there is certainly something here for me to discover more and go deeper into. And here we are, 7 years
That's interesting.
later.
So when you first started, were you just kind of being solo and just talking about topics, or did you immediately start talking to guests?
No, actually, and that's it's great that you bring me back now to that time. I haven't thought of it in a while. Uh, I started my first podcast was with a co-host, so it was a friend of mine. We were both very passionate about personal development. We had complementary knowledge, I think, in many
Mm,
areas of personal development. He had read, tons of books, and we created a podcast as a co-host, where in each episode we would discuss between us one
mm-hmm.
concept. For example, morning routine, or goal setting, or how to deal with fear of failure, or whatever it was that we would talk about. That was for me very useful because Paul, my friend, had the gift, I would say, it was a gift really, to, if you told him, okay, Paul, tell me about this, whatever you would throw at him, he would just start speaking about it and he would remember quotations from books that he had
Well,
read. So it
yeah,
was quite impressive. So that took from me the fear that I had, that how on earth can I talk and keep my train of thought enough to create a podcast episode. At that time, that was completely, out of
true.
my my
It was
league.
too new to you.
So it was
Yeah,
great to have the coexistence,
co-host.
the co-hosts.
He always had something to say. Like that's the thing. Is like you don't want like in this industry, you don't want the dead air, or you don't the idea. Like you start talking, then you lose the momentum, and then it feels like, oh, okay, it's kind of crashing. Being a musician, like if you're on stage and you don't remember the song, or you make a mistake, or you don't know how to be in the moment. Like what I love about live podcasting, which I've always been a live podcaster, is the fact that you've got to be kind of in that flow state in the moment, and it feels very real. It could be vulnerable. I mean, you're taking a risk because you're not planning it out like a script writer. Having a very defined script is not the way I do it, and it's worked for me. And some people are not comfortable with that, but like, did you guys start planning what you were going to say, or was it kind of like outline and then you went with what your gut told you?
It's interesting. I did the planning. He was doing he was turning up and talking about what I had planned. So it worked out well in this case, because
Mm.
we were, as I said, we were quite opposite in terms of the way we did things. So that helped to to bring the best of both of it, because I think you do need to plan to some extent. Certainly not over plan and let excessive planning really, I think, ruins it. There is a time where enough planning is enough, and then you have to go to imperfect action, and
Yeah,
so. But I think just showing up without any preparation whatsoever. Of course, it depends on the context and the circumstances, but for me personally, I wouldn't do that to anything, because it is, can I say it, it also can be arrogant to, not that you don't care enough. That's how I see it anyway. It's completely my personal opinion. So some preparation for sure, but then take action, and if the preparation will become useful
Yeah,
probably.
I mean,
Most
yeah,
probably.
yeah. If you're gonna talk about master class, if you're talking about mastery or you're talking about development, you have a set topic. My show is more of like an interview show, and I have a teleprompter in front of me. I've got like notes in background, bio, all kinds of stuff. But
Right.
what the difference is like if you're a jazz musician, you know the song, but you can deal with if there's a somebody hits a wrong note, you can recover from that because that bad note is an opportunity. And if you trust yourself as a musician, you can take any situation and you can evolve the song. There's a situation with like Herbie Hancock and Miles Davis. He hit the wrong chord. Miles changed the song to match the chord. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. But
Yeah. Miles Davis said, "Do not fear mistakes. There are none." And I do remember, and you're probably aware of it since you mentioned Miles Davis. He was one of his other musicians, played the wrong note or the wrong chord at some point, and there was like a split second pause there. And then Miles Davis changed the direction of the song to match what his other
yeah,
player said. And he said that when you make a mistake, it is the next note that will determine whether that mistake was good or bad. So
yeah,
that's something that you reminded me. I enjoy. I'm not a very a huge fan of jazz, but I certainly enjoy my Miles Davis.
yeah. Well, it's just the idea of kind of being in the moment, or the concept of happy accidents. I'm in software design engineering, and sometimes like you have a project plan, and then you have an unintended situation happens where you find something that's actually better than what the plan was, and have the kind of ability to speak out and say, this thing we found is actually better than what we planned, right? And so you can be locked into the project plan, or are you actually going to go with the opportunity that presents itself?
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of like confidence and trust and safety and fear. And all those things start to come into play. Like people tend to not want to push to the limits because safety is like it's easier to stay in your zone. It's harder to go into something that maybe you're not the best at, but it can lead to a lot of opportunity. And so, like, mastery is really important. Like, you have to have that 10,000 hours of doing anything to get good at it, whether you're public speaking or an actor, you're a painter, you're a musician, whatever you do. If you've done the rehearsal, you've done the work, it's going to come across that you know what you're doing. Right. So when you talk about like personal mastery and the things that you try to bring to or development mastery, what are like some really core foundational things that people need to look at, or like first steps?
It's a great question. There are two that come to mind. There are many, elements of self mastery, but two of them that really strike out right now. One of them is self discipline, and what I mean by self discipline is the ability to do what you said that you would do, regardless, of your emotional state or the story that happened or whatever else. It is a very, I think it is fundamental for many reasons. One of the main reasons that I believe self-discipline is foundational is that once you follow the self-discipline and take the action that you had decided to take, you feel better about yourself. I think it feeds, and it feeds your self esteem. It does that for me. If I say tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up super early at 4:45, and I'm an early riser, even
Yeah.
though now in the winter it's not much fun to wake up at that time. But regardless of that, if I say I will wake up at 4:45 and I do not, because I decided at that moment, oh, it's so cold outside, I will sleep for another half an hour, or then I don't feel that great about myself. And that's not consciously that it happens. Say, oh, I missed it, and then I beat myself up. To some extent, it happens subconsciously. A part of me
Hmm.
knows that I did not have the integrity to myself to do what I had said only in the previous evening that I would do. And on the contrary, if I do wake up at 4:45 and get by those first 5-10 minutes of shock, then I feel really good because I have already started my day with a win. I did something that I said that I would do, and that makes me feel good. So that's one let's say inner element of how the self discipline
Yeah.
for me is connected to self mastery. Um, I don't know if you want me to stay on this topic.
No, it makes sense because it's like commitment. Like being a musician, is like commitment to the craft, regardless of whether the song is making money or like I've been a musician since I was 12 years old. I'm 57,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I continually do it because I have a love for the instrument. So I'm in a bedroom studio. I've got my pianos in my bedroom because I like to be able to play and I like to be able to put stuff down. And I knew a lot of musicians when I was 17 and they had their instruments, and then if they didn't hit a certain goal, then that instrument's been sitting in the garage, it's been sitting in the basement, they never picked it up again. And then I know people that are still playing till this day and play until they're not here. So it's a matter of like, why did you want to play? Did you play because you're trying to impress somebody, you're trying to hit something, or do you play because you love it? Like if I talk to an author, like they have all these ideas. Some of them work, some of them don't. They don't stop just because one idea didn't work or five ideas didn't work. They do it because they love it. So they have a commitment to something that's beyond just like maybe a metric. We live in a world where everybody's looking at data analytics, and if they don't hit this and don't hit that, then they just drop things. Not that you don't move on, but people just don't finish things. And to me, like you have to, if you're in the arts, you have to commit to your pieces, or they never go anywhere.
You said commitment to the craft, and I completely agree. Commitment and consistency, that's great. And also the love of the craft, because when you love the craft that you do, playing music, doing podcasting, whatever it is that your craft is, when you love it, you have enthusiasm about it. And with enthusiasm, it's, I believe, one necessary ingredient of greatness or of mastery of the instrument or the craft. Or without enthusiasm, I'm afraid you can only be mediocre at best, and it's very easy to lose the consistency because at some point, as you said about your friends that put the instrument in the garage, you lose the reason to play when you don't have that love, that
The
passion. Of
passion.
course, you need to
Yeah.
cultivate it. It doesn't mean that it's there burning forever, and you can you have to
Yeah.
fuel that fire for sure. But it is there.
But it's kind of like you got to show up. You can't just phone it in. Now, you can show up
Yes.
and you could be phoning it in.
Hmm.
It's like
Hmm.
the difference of somebody that just loves what they're doing. Right. The reason why people are entrepreneurs or they have their own business because they decided they have a vision and they want to execute and they don't want to be in somebody else's box.
Yes.
They want to define what they're doing. Right. And they don't want somebody else defining what they're doing. And that's when you have that creative vision, to have a podcast, to be a TEDx speaker, to be a writer, to be a filmmaker, anything you choose to do. It is like when you have that, you get to that top level is because you want to be there. You don't feel like you're obligated to be there, right?
Mm. Yeah, it has to come from an an inner desire, a deep desire. And that's certainly not about others. It is about us. It's not to impress. It's not to. These are reasons that they won't keep you motivated for long. Yeah.
It's a really interesting thing when people ask like, look, well, how do you start, you know, to fulfill your vision? A lot of times you have to get, to me, it's like beyond like imposter syndrome, beyond fear, and a sense of safety. Is the one thing that I always found very interesting is, David Bowie said he liked to push himself where he was like not drowning, not treading water, but he would get uncomfortable. He would put himself into situations where he wasn't the best at something. He would push things, and what you find is the people who have that kind of mindset, they're willing to know what they don't know. Go into areas where they're not super comfortable, but they're curious. And that childlike curiosity that people seem to lose as adults, a lot of times, that's what really gets people, you know, motivated to to be, the really high performers are willing to take the chance, not totally risky, not well thought out actions, but they're willing to explore. Which I think that you have to kind of be a pioneer.
Curiosity that you mentioned, the word curiosity is again, I believe, a great ingredient into living a life that is more purposeful. So it starts with curiosity, and we are curious about some things because we're not curious about everything, but we are curious about certain things, and I think there's a reason for that, and it's up to us to follow that curiosity or express it in some way. And it's a journey. Take it from there. Not all curiosities lead to great passions, but you won't be able to find out unless you take some action to satisfy that curiosity, at least.
And also like this idea that you have of simple, consistent action. Because I think some people, they want to just go from 0 to 100, and then they don't take the little wins. They got
Yes.
beat themselves up. And so if you can't accept the little wins or the things that you get, like bite-sized pieces, like if you take a bite-sized piece of something, you have a highly likely you can get it done. But if you overextend to it, like, well, that's not even, you're not going to complete that, right? Because you're not planning it out. You're just trying to overextend. And so I think if you can have like simple, consistent behavior, you're more likely to follow through and finish it, right?
The consistency and the simple actions. And I remember now Jim Rohn, the author, he had said that success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. So these small actions, it's not great or things. It's small decisions, small actions. I think what's important with the consistency is that once you do a kind of action, could be waking up early or exercising X times a week or whatever, or doing 10 sales calls in the morning. Once you start being consistent with that action, then there is great power that gets activated, and that's the power of momentum. So you do it, you do it, you do it, then you don't even think about it. It kind of happens very naturally because you're so used to doing it. If I go for what example can I give? If I I will give the example. I will stay with the podcast because I have right now in the podcast 470 around episodes. It is sometimes they ask me, so how do you keep on doing it? Right now, I have gathered so much momentum but that it would be difficult not to do it. Of course, it wasn't
Yeah.
easy in the beginning, especially when I was doing 2 episodes a week. It was quite a lot of work. I had to go through learning curves, etc. But now, after all these years, after all these episodes, the momentum is huge. It carries on. There are, all kinds of elements behind all this motion. And, with the momentum, even more over time, as we know, the power of compounding starts to happen. So
Yeah.
keep on
Compound
doing things.
interest.
So yeah, in our personal actions in this,
Yeah.
or the results that our actions are taking. Because if you keep on taking, for example, those 10, making those 10 sales calls a day, and you keep on doing them, eventually the kind of success that you could have, provided of course that you do the other stuff that you need to do, but it would
Yeah.
start being exponentially bigger than the relatively simple small effort that you have put. It's great consistency. I mean, I love consistency. Is one of my important values.
Well, it's like the muscle memory. Like I think about, if you think about an athlete, if they don't get that 3-point shot or they don't get that play right just because it's an accident. They're putting all these reps in. As a
Hmm.
musician, it's like you wonder, like these musicians, you look at them, it's like, how can they do that? Well, if you got 10,000 hours of playing a bass, you don't have to look at it. You know where the notes are. You have like blindfolded, and you know where every note on your fretboard is, and you can just hit it. If you hear somebody playing, you can play by ear. You can pick up something off the radio, and you don't have to like look on the notes. You don't have to read the sheet. Like there's a point where you trust yourself. He's like, I know what that is, right? And your finger and your muscles, everything kind of works together. So if you get that muscle memory to the things that you do, it becomes automatic. And then eventually, like, you start to learn new things. You figure out new techniques, because once you have a mastery, then you start exploring like the outer edges of what you can do. That's why I find that's the sweet thing. That's like the happy accident that happens, because like once you get into the zone, then things can happen there. It's like, wow. And it can be unintended because your subconscious comes into play.
Hmm.
Like your dreams come into play. And if you can have like a waking dream and your muscle memory is there, and you're able to synthesize things like the idea of the muse. The artist, we feel that there's this thing we can channel into called the muse. It's really like what's inside of us and what's outside of us, and we found a way to weave it. And when you get to where you're not the second guessing, you can actually do it, because you don't spend all your time agonizing about whether you can do it or not. You just do it.
You reminded me now because you were talking about this kind of mastery and how the muscle memory. Once I had been in a concert. It was. I'm sure you have heard of Paco de Lucia, the guitar player,
Hmm.
the classic, the Spanish guitar player. So it was a concert with him and two others. So it was. They were considered three of the best, if not the three best classic guitar players in the world,
Hmm.
and all three were quite exceptional. I mean, they were playing some very complicated,
Yeah.
pieces in the guitar, and what I remember, the difference that I remember, that Paco de Lucia, who is considered, he's a legend in that the instrument, what he was doing a level above the other two was he was not looking at his guitar. The other two, when the passage was quite demanding, they would start to look at what they were playing. Paco de Lucia was looking around and smiling, and like his hands were operating completely unconsciously. That is the mastery. It is this unconscious competence. You don't have to think about it at all. It happens. Playing the
Yeah, it's
piano,
just
playing
there.
the guitar, playing football or basketball, whatever it is that you gain mastery of, or you put your 10,000 hours, as you very correctly said. This doesn't happen,
Yeah, it's not zero.
like that.
Yeah, a lot of people are looking for the quick fix. You go on social media and you got these people saying you can get to something like 10 steps, 20 steps. It's like the reality is like, that's just kind of a cheat code. Like I'm in IT, we have these things called like cheat codes, right? Which we'll
Yeah.
have these sheets of like how to get to something real quick.
Hmm.
But when there's a problem, you got to dive into your knowledge base. And the quick fix stuff doesn't take care of the big problems. The experience takes care of the big problem. The fact that you can be a detective and sniff out what really is going on because you have a foundational knowledge, right? So that you have somebody come in and brand new and they might be able to handle the average problem from the cheat sheet. But you need the expert with the knowledge, with that have done the 10,000 hours, done the 10 years, done the 15 years. They're the ones who are going to solve the root cause analysis. They're going to get into it. And some people think it's like, well, if I can get these people to just run the cheat sheet, I don't need the knowledge.
If
That's a
only,
mistake.
if only that would work. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a cheat sheet to mastery. That you might be able to have a cheat sheet on, operating something or a process, or, but to master something, a cheat sheet, I can't think of anything that
Yeah,
would
it's not going to
work.
work. For some people, it feels like, well, oh, this guy can handle it, but they really didn't do the rigor. They don't have the rigor, and
Yeah.
so they might appear to be able to handle it, and then they don't. They don't really have the tools, and you kind of set them up for failure uh, because they might appear that they can handle something, but they really don't have the true knowledge, the true mastery. And so, because of our society is so into these quick fixes, quick answers, you go into, you chat GBT, and I don't want to jump on it, but the idea of AI tends to, from the technology, give you the answer that it thinks you want. With the prompt engineering, you have to be very detailed and keep on asking and keep on looking to get a really to try to find any accuracy. And you have to check it. You have to get like a research paper. You should check the sources. Like, where did it get that from? And because it's a technology, it'll give you a better answer than what an old internet search would. People would just take the first thing it kicks back without doing the work, and then it could get burned because it looks like it's the right answer, but it's not.
You know what I just realized now with what you were saying, that I have had with AI and ChatGPT and other AIs. I have had some amazing answers to questions that I had, or content, or whatever it is. I had some incredible answers. However, insights, the ones that you say, whoa, that a light bulb comes on and you say, whoa, I had never thought of that, this was incredible, have only come for me with interactions with other people. I've never read an answer of GPT and said, this is,
Yeah,
there is a
human
difference
spark.
between, yeah,
Yeah,
that insight that you get it and you say, this is great. I hadn't thought of that. And I think that is, I don't know if that is my own personal experience or if others, have
yeah. I think
got.
it's a kind of a common thing because like what these machine learning systems do is like they grab all this knowledge and they look at it kind of face value, but they don't have it from a philosophical. Like if you it's like a Socratic method. Like they don't have the spark. A lot of times, if you're an artist, you look at it and say, "Yeah, I see this art that he generated, but there's no soul in it. There's no heart in it." And if you're a mathematician or scientist, like, well, it didn't go into the real depth. It gave me kind of the route answer, and so it can do that. And so you might be satisfied with it, but it's like it's not going to give you an insight that somebody's got that human, like that humanness that we have, humanity is the secret sauce that the machine doesn't have. The tech bros will try to tell you that it does. some of them are saying it's already got all human knowledge is in machine learning. Like, really? How could all human knowledge be inside the machine? I don't buy it.
I think I'm not sure. I really don't know, but I would add the word "yet" to all this that you were saying. So yet I agree with you. So far, yet it doesn't have all the knowledge. For how long this will be the case, I don't know, and whether it will. I mean, when I say it, I mean the artificial intelligence will be able
Yeah.
to incorporate some, you said philosophical, I will also say moral or spiritual or other ethical aspects of us. Perhaps it doesn't have them all yet, but I
Well, I
wouldn't be
think it's sentient.
surprised if in the
I think it's
future
like the
it
thing is
does.
like data is very good. Like you could say you collected all the books, all the movies, all the pieces of material.
Hmm.
I think what's missing is the sentience, right? And that every human being has their own experience in life, right? There's very unique, and they've got their own personality. I don't. The machine doesn't have a personality. It doesn't have a sentience, right? It doesn't have that individual experience as a being, a living being. And I think that is what it will never have unless it becomes us. And I don't think we're at the point of becoming an android that actually has its own mindset. I don't see that. Maybe it will happen. Maybe somebody will figure out how to get that human spark into a machine. But that is what we have. And I think that the insight you're saying is coming from, I believe, that human spark that the machine can't do. You know, so that I think that when people think they can replace humans with machines for things that are very, human. I've heard people tech bros tell me like we'll replace musicians, we'll replace actors, we'll replace painters. Like, really? How could it like get the heart, the soul? It can give you a picture and it looks good. It looks like it's a picture. It's not a stick drawing. But is that really the soul? Is that Picasso? Is that Rembrandt? Is that something like? Yeah, I don't think it's that. It can mirror it, but it can't do it.
It's a great point. I hadn't thought of it like that. Yeah, and let's add Miles Davis to that list of masters that you said. I don't know if I can't
Yeah.
imagine, but yeah, I get your. It's a valid point that you say. What the future holds, we'll see. But I definitely believe that we're not there yet, and we'll
Well, I
see.
think it's so intimidating to young people. Like, they wonder, it's like, should I do the rigor? Should I put the work in if these machines can outdo me? So if you're like a 10, 12-year-old, teenager and you're trying to learn, it's like, why should I read Moby Dick? Why should I read Shakespeare? I can use chat AI to write something. I don't need to actually experience it. Like, it's going to
Yeah.
be better than me. And they're kind of minimizing their human capability. And people are, so I kind of fear for that generation that doesn't think that they're better than the machine. I think that's a real danger to trying to have any kind of mastery. How can you have mastery if you already think that you're insufficient?
And you asked about why to read Moby Dick, and what the answer that came to mind was because it will cultivate your intellect, your spirit, your imagination, your ability of judgment. It will create or evolve your character as a person. So these are reasons to read a book. Of course, in the end, the AI might do a better summary of the book than you. But chances are that it will, but that's not the point. That's not the point of reading the book in the
Yeah.
first place. I mean, the homework or the exercise is probably the wrong way of asking children to read a book. For what
The book
purpose? In
report.
order to answer some questions that, I've had it, you've had it. It still hasn't changed much. There is the exam at the end. You have to test what you learned. So you don't learn for the all the other
Exam.
things that you get. You learn just to memorize some facts or some opinions, and then being able to recite them in one way or another. And yeah, it's a big topic.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the blue book exam versus like an SAT exam. Like I went to a school called Bowdoin College, and there's a lot of blue book and then oral exams where you had to explain, right? So it proves like did you actually process what you learned this semester and be able to have critical thinking and read and not just read back a multiple choice selection of like A, B, C, D, E, but actually explain what the concept means in your own words. Did you actually learn it? And I think a lot of times that people are losing that because they think it's just like the mechanical test of filling in the bubbles without actually learning. Did you actually learn the lesson? Can you apply it to other things in life? Can you actually have critical thinking? And in just knowing some route answer is like that's not really learning. That maybe the exam is testing the teacher. It's like ability to show you how if you're failing, the teacher didn't convey it in a way that you could actually learn it.
If you want to see whether you really know something, a topic, a subject, try to explain it or to teach it to someone else, and that will very quickly show you whether you are fully familiar with it. Because when you understand it, then you can explain it, and you can explain it simply. If you really can struggle to explain it, or if the other person is struggling to understand, then you really don't know the subject that well. I think that's really something that shows how well informed one is on any particular topic, and they teach it.
Yeah, if you become like you become a mentor, like you take the lessons in your life and you pay it forward. I've talked to a lot of people who are like coaches. And the whole idea is like they've taken things that happen, and it could have been like bad things or traumatic things in their life, and they found a way to be positive about it by say, "Hey, I had these missteps in life, and I want to make sure other people don't hit the same thing." Or I would show them how, what I did isn't necessarily what you're going to do, but it's like the listening skill. Because some people, it's like one size isn't going to fit everybody, and like 10 steps isn't going to always work for everybody. But what I found people who really are great at this kind of mentoring or coaching is like they listen to the people they're working with and they pick up what's in their life and then figure out how to apply what happened to them or the lessons they've learned. And it's a synthesis. It's not just there's some information they've in practice and in depth of things that they've done, but they listen in the moment to what the issue is.
Definitely, definitely, it is. Yeah, I'm thinking if there is anything that nothing comes to mind to add to that as you do, but yeah, it makes sense.
So in terms of being like a knowledge broker, like what does that mean to you? What is that term for you?
For me, it is. We live in this information era. There is an abundance of information out there, a sea, a sea of information, and sometimes it feels like we're drowning on it. There is, at the same time, there is not enough wisdom. So knowledge on its own and the ability to access the knowledge so freely as we can nowadays has actually created a different problem. Like 100 years ago, in order to find this knowledge, you needed to have access to a huge library and librarians, and still you wouldn't be able to find everything. But now, because of the opposite situation, it's hard to find the things that really matter to you as information that will allow you to, advance your goal, or your whatever it is that you're looking to find in that information. And in my field and the podcast, it is personal development, growing ourselves as people, as who we are. So I lost my train of thought there for for a
No,
moment.
but the idea of a broker,
The broker is taking
yeah,
this kind of knowledge, of abundance of knowledge in my particular field, and distilling it into something more actionable, something more practical, something.
oh,
And that's
so
what I
the
mean
I
by
got,
wisdom. And
yeah,
my in the book, my book, I called it 88 actionable insights. So actionable insights, that is really the point. It's not, to give people more information. No one needs more information. We have
want to know what's the plan? Yeah, you think if you can
what
get
can
the
I do
information,
with it? What can
yeah,
I
what
do
are the
with it?
action items? Like you have a meeting, went for an hour and a half. It's like, what are the
What
top five action items? Like, what was the problem? Like, in business, we have this idea like the business case or the use case, right? And so, like, we try to distill, like, what is the problem that the client has? Can we distill, is it a, a specific issue that they're having? Can we create a business case? Can we create use cases? Can we have different options to solve the problem? Because if you can't take like a list of like 100 complaints. It's like, what is the core thing that's going on? Like as an analyst, we'll look at it and we'll distill out of it what the real problem is, and then that's the work that we do. It's kind of like doing research papers all the time. I'm a business analyst. That's my job, and so I have to go into situations and find out what is the problem that the client has. And is it actual like a workflow solution? Is it a technical solution? Is it a mechanical solution? But like I can't go in and just prejudge it. I got to figure out what it is, like a detective. And there is an overload of people will give you all kinds of information. You could go down a rabbit hole. You could go down the wrong way because they might not be defining the problem because they don't even understand the problem. So it's like the overload today we get with information is a big problem. Because you get to the client and sometimes they're on the wrong path. You got to get them back on the right path.
you were saying about work environment, I will bring to personal development environment, and what many of us do, and I know I've done it for years, and was read the book, whatever non-fiction or self-help book, or if it isn't a business book, something that we learn. And then wondering, okay, I read the book, or I've read so many books, but I don't see the results. So what I was doing, what many people do, is read the book, and that the action level remains there. Okay, I've read the book, but it doesn't work like that. You have to actually do what you read in the book. So that is the very big difference between information, which they say knowledge is power, and I don't agree with that phrase at all. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge is only power when you apply it towards some goal. That's when it is power. Otherwise, I might have the encyclopedia in my mind, and just what's the point of that? Where is the power in that? Unless I'm
Yeah,
put it into some good use.
insights. Like yeah, they like if you have data analytics and it gives you all these graphs, like having that data is fine. But did you make a business decision based on the data analytics that you received, and was it profitable, or was it not profitable? Did it make you more efficient? Did it make you more a better global citizen because you found out you were wasteful, or you stopped the waste, you found out you were polluting and you stopped the pollution. What did you do with the data? Just having the visualization like isn't the thing. It's like, what did you do with the data in the visualization?
It's always what we do with the things. It's useful, of course, to have them there, and the data and the numbers, the knowledge. It starts with that, but it doesn't end with that. It ends with what we do with it and how we interpret it, and but more importantly, what the action steps. We were talking earlier about consistency. It doesn't have to be a huge life-changing action. It can be a small thing that you do as a result of that, and you do it over and over again, and it really changes. With when we change the direction of what we do, even by 1 degree, just 1 degree, for a period of time, it doesn't seem like we're going very much different. It's like an airplane, if they steer 1 degree to the right, for a while it won't be a huge difference in the trajectory that it's going versus the original one. But if it carries on like that for a couple of hours, then it will be in a different continent. So
Yeah,
the same with us. If we apply a 1 degree change in our lives over time, it will take us to a different direction. And if it is an empowering decision, a decision that benefits us, it will take us to a better direction. If it is the wrong decision, or a decision which does not serve us, or action that does not serve us, then further down the line we are in a much worse
yeah,
place over time. So it's small actions over time, compounded over time, that will determine, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. The time will pass anyway. 5 years will pass.
yeah,
What are we going to do this next 5 years? Will we
yeah. I
go
work
one degree to the right, or what will
yeah.
we do?
Well, I work with a lot of actuaries because I'm in the financial, sector, and looking at pennies. They look at pennies. They look at like fractions of pennies, and
Okay.
they look at competitive advantages and formulas and ratios and algorithms, and it gets to the nth degree, and they're like why are they so concerned about these minor things? But they're not minor when you look over millions of records, tens of years.
Hmm.
They start to you see the consequences of the math, like you're saying. You start to see like what happened with the plane, and so people say, yeah, these things matter. The accuracy and the actual in certain engineering exercises, like you have to be like so well defined, in space, engineering, aviation engineering, like you have to have tolerances that are extreme, or you'll have, your spaceship blows up. Like so that's why you test so many variations, because like that you have to get it right. But like yeah, it's a lot of work to do that. But you have to have a plan. And it seems like to me, it's like the when you get down to it, is mastery actually one of the first steps in mastery? Is it actually coming up with the outline? An author, they create it before they build their story. They have an outline. They have character designs. They start to formulate the foundational structure of anything is the planning, right?
You both need to have the planning, the foundation, and the vision, the North Star that will drive you there. Because if you plan and take action on the wrong thing because your vision was not clear or where you want to go, then it doesn't work very well. So both, certainly the fundamentals, and never forgetting the fundamentals, is absolutely essential. I mean, how you an ingredient to mastery. You have to know the fundamentals, practice the fundamentals. I'm sure that you know what I mean. As a
Yeah,
musician,
yeah,
it could be
yeah.
how you position your fingers on the piano. That is a fundamental. If you position them wrong, then everything you will do, it will have
Feeling's gonna be off. Yeah.
something not quite right, and over time
No,
that will so practicing the fundamentals and also having a clear direction, a clear vision of where it is that you want to go, and being able to tweak your path along the way, because it's rarely a straight line.
it's never a
It's
straight
usually
line.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember Steve Jobs was talking about consultants and like bureaucracy, and he said he'd rather have people that are more visionary than the technical bureaucrats or project management. Just that was like PMOs, like very defined structure, but they had no creativity. If they don't have the vision, they say it doesn't matter if you can manage the widget. If you don't know how to create the widget, there's nothing to manage. So you have to have the vision to actually come up with like an iPhone or come up with an iPod to come up with the Mac. Like once they're there, you can come in and you can manage my general ledger. You can manage that, but there's got to be the person who actually has the vision. Is like, what is it that we're gonna build? What is our goal? And just being able to manage the number isn't the same as the person that can actually create the product.
It's that phrase, when you take care of the why, the how will take care of itself somehow. When you know why you're going to do something, the how you're going to do it. I remembered, I think it was Henry Ford that was telling his mechanics what he wanted, that the automobile, and kept on telling him, this is impossible, we can't create an engine the what you, it's not possible. And he said, I don't care, you make it, you create it. And eventually they did. The fact that we don't know how to do something yet is secondary and shouldn't deter us from going off. If we know exactly what it is or where we want to go,
Yeah, where you want to
the
go.
how comes second.
Like going to Mars, like we want to have the getting there and getting there faster than what we can do. Is like, yeah, we want to go to Mars. We know it takes a lot months to get there. We know it's dangerous when we get there. So it's like the cutting edge pioneering human spirit, the idea that you could build a colony on Mars. That's like the new big idea. Like in tech, that everybody's a lot of companies are trying to align to that. And it's like you're like, yeah, some of the technology doesn't exist to make it work. It's
Yet.
being invented as we speak. They're working on it. And so, but the idea is like we're going to do it. So you got to have that vision to be able to figure out like, well, how do we do it? It's like, well, you can't just say, well, it's impossible. Like you said, like you'll never get there. That's not helpful.
Yeah.
So I think that the limiting belief, it gets it can it's like a virus. It can come in and it's like totally detract from you because there's a lot of things that are maybe beyond what you can do today, but not beyond what you can do tomorrow.
Mm, mm. Yeah, indeed. That's why I like to use the word yet in many times. Whenever something I don't know or I can't do or we can do, or if you add the word yet, I don't know it yet, we can't do it yet, we haven't figured it out yet, it gives a very different element, and it allows for creativity, imagination, all those wonderful qualities to come into play and figure it out further down the line, or connect with the people that you do, because it's not about us figuring everything out. That's
Yeah, you got
why
to work with other
where
people.
other people and teams come from to help with their own superpowers and expertise and talents.
Yeah, I can think we can end on the note of individualism isn't always the answer. I think sometimes Americans, we're so into individualism, think we can just do it all by ourselves. And we forget that, you have to build a community and you have to build a team and you have to know what you don't know and then find out what somebody else might know. And don't be scared to ask. I think so people are like, I want Horatio Alger. I want to do it all by myself. I'm gonna be a self-made man or woman, and I had no help. I just did it all. And like, really, uncover that story, and it's not true. It's not true that they did it all themselves. I,
Of
I,
course
would- I
not.
would I would argue there's no way, but that's
There is
what
no
they
such
wanted.
thing as self-made. No one is self-made in that in the strict sense of the word. You can't. I mean, go to a desert then and make yourself without any other people. It doesn't happen like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. That's a myth. But people like to live in myth. But I want to thank you again for being on the show. It always goes by quicker than we ever imagined. We do have your URL there, and that will be fully clickable. We were just live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We do encourage people to click on the link. If people click on your link, what do they find?
They will be able to download for free a digital version of my book, 88 Actionable Insights for Life. So, if you enjoyed what we're talking about, you will get at least 88 potential actions that you can take. You don't need to take all of them, just pick one. That's really find the one that resonates and pick it and change 1 degree, as we were saying earlier. And then miracles happen further down the line.
It's great to have a resource, like the 88, and you pick one that speaks to you or something that you get aligned with. Read it, check it out, and see which of the 88 apply to you or apply to
It,
where you want to go.
it's yeah, the book is not meant to be read from cover to cover. You can if you want, but it's split in segments, and you can find what resonates with you. Don't worry, if you open it, you will get drawn to something instinctively, and then just take it from there. So it is my gift to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for being a guest on the Family Electric Ghost podcast. We appreciate it. And as I said, we're just live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. It's immediately available on those channels, and we'll send you a landing page for your audience, and that will be done by the end of the day. And so, thank you again for being on the show, and have a great rest of the. I don't know if it's evening or morning for you, but it's morning for us. But so
It's
have a great.
early afternoon. Thank you so much for the invitation. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.